Cuba is arguably one of the most isolated and culturally rich countries on Earth. In this Bernie Chats with Claude Duke, we'll discuss the project Claude started to capture it, in photos and on film. And in the second video, part 2, we'll chat about his Mexico project. Now let's get started. So we're being joined by Claude Duke today. Claude is a multi-talented individual. He's a photographer, artist, designer, book publisher, and now a film producer. Claude, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days? And then we'll get into the background a bit.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bernie, for inviting me to your program. And it's rather special, just because for all what we've been going through the last year. And so my latest project is the beautyofmexico.com. So this will be a 600-page book.
Okay.
Also, is going to be a video on demand.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the book and the film. But before that, let's back up a little bit. And now I first had the pleasure of meeting you about 10 years ago at a travel blogger meetup. And at that time, you had another book and you were promoting a very similar type of concept for the book of Vancouver.
Exactly.
So can you walk me through a little bit of the projects from how you went from doing a book on Vancouver to then, I understand you did one on Cuba, or you were starting one on Cuba, and then Mexico. And yes, please do hold it up.
Vancouver, yes.
Yeah, now these are all what some would call coffee table books, right?
Exactly.
And with high-end photography and some stunning photos that you produced. So how did you go from doing the Vancouver coffee table book to your next steps?
Yes, everything started because I'm a Cubanista. It's just that I love Cuba. And mostly I've been visiting Cuba close to 8-9 times. Mm-hmm. And mostly always have been inspiring me. Again, we know so little of Cuba. And once I was in Varadero, and I went to a gift shop, and I said, "Do you have a book about Cuba, the entire Cuba? I'd really love to see more about Cuba." He says, "No, we don't have that. Maybe postcards, but that's it." Okay, we have an idea here. Okay, how about if we produce one? And that's how I started the entire concept. And I wrote to the government of Cuba, and I started peddling the entire idea, what I want to do, what I want to say. And all of a sudden, I confronted a big wall in front of me, which was the red tape.
Red tape.
And that was, I said, and a friend of mine who passed away, he says to me, "Why don't you make a sample of what you do, and you send it to them and prove what you have to say?" Okay, that's a good idea. So I started to do a book about Vancouver. At the time also, also there's a little oversaturation of the amount of photographers in town, because everybody within a camera or with a big camera or semi-big camera is, I'm a photographer.
Right.
But the thing is that people who live through photography, we pass a hard time. So the thing is, I said, okay, I'm going to do something that is what I'd love to do, something that I really find myself on it. And I started to tell the story about Vancouver, what I love about Vancouver, in my eye.
I just want to paraphrase here a little bit. So you saw an opportunity in Cuba for a coffee table photography book. Mm-hmm. And you were advised and you felt that you needed to present some of your works to give them an idea of what you were talking about.
Exactly.
And you thought, well, I'm in Vancouver. I'm going to produce a book on Vancouver, and that will be an example of some of my works to add to my credibility and to be able to put my best foot forward, and they can get a visual, tangible idea of what I can do for Cuba. And the reason I want to tell it that way is I just want people to grasp from it the idea that having a portfolio and some of your works, if you're moving a project forward, can be very beneficial.
Yeah, it is, mostly like in everything. If you build your credibility, it is, it's in everything. You know, if you're a singer, if you have an amazing repertoire, you'll be hired.
Right.
If you have an amount of art, you know, paints, the same thing. You have to build your credibility. And mostly that credibility, I've been taking more than 10 years in photography. Because I used to perform. I'm a singer as well, so I've been singing all my life. In photography, was always something at the side, you know. It just, but it was part of me. One of my biggest gig in town was at some Brazilian steakhouse, and when it closed down because they demolished the building, I said I'm going to do something that I really love, and again, photography fall into all the categories of being an activity that which I have been done in the past, which I've been enjoying it, and also I can tell the story. I find in myself that I'm a storyteller. My 70th year, I can tell the story, and awesome. Because I've been doing so many things in my life.
Yes.
So I've been testing advertising. I've been testing how you produce, how you put things together. Mm-hmm. Put things together. Mm-hmm. It's not just to take a picture. It's just how you put it together. So, in all those experiences drive me to do this book and to do the book of Cuba.
You've basically been in visual communications all of your life, haven't you?
Yeah, you could say so. Yeah,
whether it's designing or photography, you know, singing and playing music is a form of communication.
Exactly. You know, singers, we are actors who sings. You know, that's why it was so easy for me to get into acting for commercials for the United States. And I did it for 3 years.
Nice.
Always being the dad.
Well, I think that's a good thing to have a fatherly presence is a very powerful thing, I think.
Yeah. I didn't know that I was able to act. Why? Because I was singing.
Oh,
you see? And so the thing is, if you sing, you're acting. You're expressing you're happy, you're sad, you're in love, you know, you're excited, you know. So the thing is, all these activities have been putting me sort of a kind of building a credibility as a producer, as a director, let's say, that I've been touching all this, you know, because when you're doing a movie or a documentary or a book of Mexico, you have to tell the story and say it right, truthfully. Mm-hmm. And mostly that's what you see. You're not gonna I hate when with some other colleagues it's starting to put too much of it, you know, criticizing the country no, I'm witnessing what I'm seeing. Right. And what I'm seeing is I'm trying to be inspiring for others to, if, for example, like it happened to me in Cuba once. I was going there and I arrived at really 7 o'clock in the morning to Havana. And I said, in the panorama of Havana, it was almost a culture shock. So all of a sudden I said, because I was expecting so much. And all of a sudden I said, well, we're going to have to find the beauty in the smaller things. So when you find beauty in the smallest things, you'll be able to build incredible things. And that's what I've been finding in Mexico and in Cuba. And again, Cuba is in a standby due to economics and so on. Mexico came knocking, and mostly we have been developing Mexico at a speed of light in comparison with Cuba, unfortunately. But as soon as we finish with Mexico, we will do Cuba with our own means. And so it's so much to tell, Bernie. There's so much to tell.
Why don't we talk about Cuba just a little bit before we get into Mexico a little more?
Yeah.
So in Cuba, how many trips did you take to Cuba? What did you accomplish there before you had to shelf the project for a while?
Well, I've been almost 8 trips.
Okay.
And I've been in 5 different provinces, in Varadero, Havana, Trinidad, just really trying to keep expanding my ideas and make a sample, which I have in my website, www.claudeduke.com. I have a sample book of Cuba as well.
Okay, great.
So the thing is, you know, it's been very profound. You know, I'm like they say, I'm a Cubanista. You know, I really love the music. I really love the people. Just if you like people,
yes,
you get inspired by people. So the thing is, it's just that it is so much to share. You know, and my first time, I remember when I went to Cuba, I never did so many friends in a week like I never did in my life. Not because I speak the language, it's because we click.
right.
See?
Yeah, so they're warm and open.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
makes sense.
Not because they are after my tip or not, but it was all what we built. It was genuine.
So in Cuba, did you have any background on Cuba other than going for vacations there? Did you have any other insights that led you to believe that Cuba would be a, a place other than they don't really have a nice coffee table book or they don't have a nice production to explain the country?
I arrived in America in 1973,
Okay.
and I lived between Cubans for 10 years, 15 years.
Oh, okay.
So I know them. You know, I
Right.
knew one side of the story and
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to see the other side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, mostly that thing drive me to so many conclusions because propaganda and false news and all that, sometimes you get amazed. It's just something else. For example, when I was in Chile, everybody used to say, "Oh my God, United States is so rich, is so rich." When
Mm-hmm.
I arrived in the United States, I discovered that almost the United States was in bankrupt. He was
Oh.
lending money from everybody.
Well,
so,
it's
so
interesting
the
that
thing is, where's
Cuba.
the richness here?
Yeah, no kidding. There's perceptions. I always say that before I go to a new country, I have a preconceived idea about that country, and almost as soon as I land
Yeah,
in the country, the preconceived idea is totally demolished.
yeah,
I have to
yeah, yeah,
rebuild
yeah.
a new narrative in my mind about the country. It's
I never
interesting
expect.
that Cuba, both Cuba and Mexico, are places that I that I'm a little bit familiar with and that I have a little bit of affinity for. Let's say I don't know if I ever told you that my uncle was involved in Cuba, and he was there during the revolution. Doing we understood he was clearing roads for construction companies. We later found out after his passing that he might have been involved in a little bit more than that, and that he had spent a good length of time. I believe he was in Cuba for 6 or 7 years, right around the same time as the revolution, and also when Ernest Hemingway was there. And
Oh well.
yeah, and he also spent time in two other South American countries when there was a revolution. So, so it was quite interesting. We're still connecting the dots on that little bit of family history, but I've always meant to go to Cuba. I'm looking forward to going there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right now, Cuba is just such you'll find a Pandora box wherever you go. Mostly all the tourist development. Cuba lives in tourism, and right now it just is so fantastic what you find in the hospitality industry. Like hotels. You'll be able to find gorgeous hotel, and you discover mostly what I love about Cuba is the turquoise waters. It just
Yeah,
is
for sure.
so
The
so dreamy.
beaches and
Oh yeah, oh
the
yeah.
Caribbean Sea, I guess.
And also the musicality of the people. I'm being as a musician, and always,
Yeah,
I always admire all the people who do good things. It's just
sure.
and Cuba has so much. Believe me, when I'll do the Beauty of Cuba, you're going to be a lot of music and people, super talented musicians, super talented. Believe me,
Yeah,
the art
it-
world as well. The art world is unbelievable, unbelievable. It's beyond. I've been having the time to walk in the streets and going to those small art galleries and enjoy what they do, and they're very good.
it's almost like music is to Cuba what hockey is to Canada.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Very much so.
at the very top of my list is to go into Havana, go into a jazz bar and just listen.
There you go.
That's the very top of my list for when I finally go to Cuba.
You having a good run. There you go.
So you toured around quite a bit in Cuba. What would you say are the top few hidden gems or secrets or places that people should go, or that really captured your attention specifically? you know, stories, places, people?
Uh, it's so difficult because the for me it was such a good experience,
Mm-hmm.
and just to pinpoint, you know, again, if you're in Havana, mostly restaurants, foods is just unbelievable.
Right.
Food, you know, you'll be able to see, and mostly the restaurants, and they have a hard time to get a menu together in a daily basis because sometimes they don't have basics. Like say they offer, let's say, a steak, and they had to create the steak from somewhere.
Right.
And sometimes they had to go to the extent of looking for. Believe me, I think one of the most ingenious industries in Cuba are the restaurants, and the quality.
Is that right? Because
Incredible.
one of the common thoughts that I hear about food in Cuba is that it's a little bit on the bland side. Is that not true?
It is in the when it's 3 stars, 2 stars, but when you go 4 or 5, now you're starting to eat well. It happens to me. One of the trips I wind up to be in a 3-star, and it wasn't that famous, you know. But the thing is, understand me one thing. I know Cuban cuisine because I live in Miami.
Right.
So for the regular tourist that doesn't know about Cuban food won't be able to understand, you know, just what you're eating. But some of it in some preparation and the variety, and they have a struggle because of the embargo. They have the struggle, you know, mostly all the big chains, they get their own line of food for them that they export themselves.
Right.
And mostly the other one that the people, they had to go. For example, I know if the most fantastic place for lobster in Varadero called the Jesus Restaurant.
The Jesus Restaurant.
Jesus Restaurant. Jesus' name is very common to find.
Right. Jesus.
And in Varadero, you know, I was looking for a place, and this taxi driver told me, there's a new place, you know, I'm going to take you there. Boy, okay, we start going like a half an hour in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of a neighborhood, you know, shows up the restaurant, and a gorgeous girl opened the taxi. And that was the start. And mostly there was this barbecue lobster, the most delicious thing I ever tried. And mostly the display, I cannot tell you. It was absolutely gorgeous. Since then, I've been recommended everybody to go to Jesus Restaurant, and I'm looking forward to one day to go back. But it's just the flavor. It's some people, they have, you know. Last Sunday I was seeing a documentary about Napolitan pizza. 3 ingredients, 4 ingredients makes the whole world of difference. You know, it's just that's what it is here too. It's just how you cook it, the amount of time you cook it. It's just, believe me, with doing my book of Vancouver, I learned how to enjoy food because talking to the chef who are so possessed, you know, by how they do it and why they do it.
Yeah, a good
and
chef.
Mostly I learned
can be something, right?
Oh, people, they are like a really something else. If when they are good, if the flavor and the food is good, it's because the chef are behind it 100%.
Oh, that's 100%. Great. So Jesus Restaurant is a 4 or 5 star restaurant, you think?
4 or 5, yes.
Okay.
I could put it in 5, but it's beyond sometimes the 5 because of the location as well. But the restaurant was so clean. It was so genuine. And it was fantastic. And mostly the attention.
Nice.
Everybody, they steal your heart. Believe me. In service, when they steal your heart. It reminds me, when I did my first video about La Guantanamera in Cuba, I had 28 minutes as my best raw footage. That was this got to be inside. It was a suffering to arrive to 5
and
sure. To put the best of the best in those 5 minutes of the song. The same thing here.
So what other tips would you have for anybody who's looking for good food? Like they can look for a 4 or 5 star. What else should they look for when they're looking for good food in Cuba?
Well, for example, like Melia Las Americas is a 5-star hotel, 4-star hotel in Varadero. Mm. The guys inside prepare such a great food. You know, sandals. They used to form as sandals. Oh, unbelievable. For example, there is a new region in Varadero at the end of the strip. The restaurant, they prepare the lobster like nobody's business. It's mostly the paladares, you know, the famous houses that are being converted into restaurants in Havana everywhere. And most of these paladares are amazing. All the cooks, all the mama and papa business, believe me, they bring out the best. And also the hotels, which is also another little industry in Cuba, which is the Casa Particular. There you go. That's the name. They are, again, they treat you, everything super clean, all the restaurant. When they do something, believe me, because if they have a repeat customer,
yeah,
amazing.
They're kind of between a hotel and a bed and breakfast, right?
Yeah, they are bread and breakfast, and they are heavy government regulated. Believe me, they inspected them. They go on it, you know. They spend a little fortunes remodeling these whole houses. I stayed once. My last time I was in Havana, I was in a Casa Particular. They have air conditioning just for every room, and mostly I have breakfast and I have dinner, and both they were excellent.
Great.
Both they were.
Are they still using the convertible peso there?
I heard that they converted in one.
Okay.
Because there was such a mix-up. I heard it, you know, believe me, I just have been so sucked in with Mexico. Yeah. But the convertible peso was something else. Was a thing that was come up by Fidel Castro, which is not subject to the valuation of the dollar.
Yeah, the Cuban peso related to the dollar, and the convertible pesos just marked the dollar and stayed with the dollar rising and falling, right?
Yes. Yes.
So 1 American dollar
is higher.
1 American dollar was always the same relatively to the convertible peso, right?
And higher.
Okay, so it was slightly higher than the American dollar. Of course, Castro would want it to be more valuable than the American dollar, right? That makes sense.
Mostly the one who pays the prices are the little Canadians. You know, we sometimes, believe me, once in my 3rd trip or 4th trip, there was a devaluation. We were paying like 60 cents on a dollar.
Oh, okay.
It was brutal. It was like a half, even more than a half.
And so at that time, the Canadian dollar must have been weak vis-a-vis the American dollar.
Yeah. It was a little brutal. It was a little brutal, you know, but, you know, because you love it so much, you don't care.
Yeah, that's right. It's the tax. You pay a little tax for that love.
Oh, yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
So, Claude, before we leave Cuba, are there any places in Cuba that come to mind that people should consider visiting after they go to Varadero and Havana? What 1 or 2 other places are worth considering, including in your agenda?
Trinidad is fantastic. Trinidad is really, really colorful.
Is that a state or a city?
So it's a province.
Province?
It's a province. And also Pinal del Rio, which is an ecological marvel.
Pinal del Rio?
Pinal del Rio.
Okay.
Pinar del Rio. It is where all the tobacco plantations are.
Oh, okay.
And the best tobacco in the world comes from there.
That would be where you go get your souvenir cigars.
Oh, yes. You'll be able to get cigars all over Cuba, you know, but the thing is just they are the producers.
I see. And then Trinidad, what is the attraction in Trinidad?
Trinidad, because Cuba was conquered by the Spaniards. In all the architecture, it is like you see in a town in Spain.
Right.
So it is the old houses. It is the same type of houses that you see in Chile. It is, but they have been repairing it. You know, it's just they've been very careful to make it attractive to the tourist.
So would you say, I guess, pristine colonial architecture?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's what you visit. You know, there's a cathedral, there is an observatory that is on top of a church, the top of a museum. I went there and I took, you know, my tour guide says, if you go up there, you're going to take the best picture of Trinidad.
Mm.
Really, really. And I went, and it was this little stair, this little turning thing going up. It was like you're going to the moon or something. You were sweating. I was sweating. My camera was just, when I arrived up there, it was the best view, of course.
Oh, nice. So you got
there.
So you got some great pictures after all, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for listening to this Bernie Chats. I hope you'll subscribe, like, or share it with a friend. Feel free to leave a comment, and we'll see you on the next one.